I got so carried away, I forgot to start recording. So when one partner is on the path and the other is not, things like values begin to diverge, worldviews may begin to diverge, problem-solving strategies may become different. It just becomes a different way of being in the world with each other. And it's not necessarily a deal breaker because I've seen some couples work it out beautifully without the other person having to um, join the path, and I've seen other couples fall apart over this. But needless to say, that differences in spiritual beliefs and being on a different path with an intimate partner can be challenging. The essential challenge rather, excuse me, is that the two people approach the differences with some understanding, with some respect, and with open communication. In other words, it's not mandatory that your partner has to get on the path, but there has to be a concerted effort to work through the differences. If the couple ignores the differences, I think they do so at their peril. So let's look at some of the tools for managing these differences, assuming that you're not going to convince your partner to join you on this path. Because again, it's not for everyone, and I'm not about trying to force someone, lead a horse to water kind of thing. Um, Now, full disclosure, if it were up to me, I wish that everyone would follow this path, but I'm a bit biased, and so obviously I'm not going to get my wish on that. But I think the world would be a better place if that were the case. But that's not going to happen. Now, some of what I'm going to suggest in terms of resolving this potential dilemma may seem obvious, but it doesn't mean that couples always implement the strategies. And before we get into the specifics, let me remind you that none of us has control over how others are. I mean, you can beg, plead, cajole, threaten, but remembering that we can't change anyone else. If we set an example, maybe they will see the benefits, but only they can decide to change themselves, and only they can change themselves, because all of our cajoling, pleading, judging is not going to do anything other than increase resentment and increase resistance. So people start to dig their heels in. Now, not surprisingly, the first of these tools is open communication. Open and honest communication about each other's beliefs, about each other's values, about each other's spiritual journey, assuming both partners have that. Sometimes one partner has it and the other doesn't. The default tendency with most couples in this situation is to avoid the topic, to not go there, to not sort of wade into these complicated waters. So what happens is these differences fester, and the emotional distance in the relationship increases. There's this tendency where they sort of diverge, and part of this open communication is creating within the couple a safe space where both partners feel comfortable and safe expressing their thoughts and feelings without judgment. Okay. Now it may be that both people are seeing the world completely differently, are seeing their individual situations completely differently. But that notwithstanding, it's so important to create a safe space to clarify and understand the different viewpoints and the different ways of approaching these questions. So that's setting a stage for open communication. That's number one. Number two is respecting each other's the differences, respecting each other's point of view. And this is sometimes tough for those of us on this path, because very often we are pretty convinced that our way is the best way. Sometimes we become a little more dogmatic and think our way is the only way. So we really have to check our judging minds at the door. We really have to check our judging minds to succeed. Because it's really important that even if we think our way is the best way and we wish that our partner would join us, we have to respect their belief system or their lack of a belief system, even if it differs from our own. It's not a competition about whose path is the better one. And so often I see it become that, my way's better. You need to get on board with me. What's wrong with you? This is causing great gaps in our emotional connection and so forth. Understanding that people may have spiritual paths, or some people may not have any spiritual path, or different levels of development helps foster mutual respect. So it's very important that we not disrespect the partner who is on a different trajectory. The third step in this process is finding common ground. Okay, and this is where we seek to identify shared values, identify shared principles that both partners can agree on. I mean, most of us that are in relationships, even if we don't agree on this aspect of our lives, there's many other aspects. We may agree politically. We may agree about our finances. We may agree about child rearing. So we want to find those areas and identify them and even celebrate the areas where there's commonality there. This helps build a foundation that will help support from underneath the relationship, even if there are differences in specific beliefs regarding spiritual or emotional development. The fourth step is to seek compromise. In other words, discuss both ways to incorporate both partners' beliefs into daily lives. Now, often we'll see this in marriages where people come to the relationship or the marriage with different religious backgrounds. So, you may have a Christian and a Jewish person who are married, and they find a way to incorporate that into their daily lives. They may do both sets of holidays, or they may, both attend each other's worship services. I mean, I used to see this a lot in my practice where people from different faith traditions would come together. This is not really different than that. So it's really respecting the other person's belief system and trying to incorporate some of that and be accepting of incorporating some of that. And this is compromises on rituals, holidays, ceremonies that both parties can comfortably participate in. There has to be a willingness to do that, to meet the other person halfway in terms of those kinds of questions. The fifth tool is mutual support. Regardless of spiritual differences, it's crucial to support each other in your spiritual journey, in your individual journey, or even the lack of a journey. Support the other person. I mean, everybody's on some kind of path, whether they've identified it, named it. It has a clear roadmap. The path may be ill-defined, but everybody's on some kind of journey to live the best life that they can. So you want to be supportive of that, however that manifests. And this may involve, attending events or practices important to the other person, while the other partner offers emotional support. There's no buy-in, but they're supportive of our efforts to go to Sangha, to meditate, to study the Dharma, and so forth. See these relationship challenges as just another teacher, another way to sort of work with acceptance, with letting go, with loving kindness, and all the things that we talk about. We want to bring all of the tools of the Dharma to our relationship so that it works out even if there's not a shared path. The next one is taking the time to learn about each other's beliefs, or helping the other person define their path, even if it's not our path. And one thing that I've found in my life is that as this path has been transformative for me, it's sort of leads by example, not by proselytizing. So someone will say, "Oh, you seem so less reactive," or "You seem happier," or "You seem different." Sometimes that will pique someone's interest about how that came to be, um, and understanding the principles and values that guide us can help bridge that gap and promote empathy on both sides. So we want to sort of lead by example, not by nagging, cajoling, proselytizing, and so forth. That to me can be one of the more powerful tools, is just how we live our lives differently and how that impacts those around us that with whom we're in close relationships. And then next is focusing on shared values. Okay. And shared values that strengthen the relationship. And here, such as I said, love, trust, commitment, being a good person in the world, generosity. These can be shared values without having to be the bailiwick of our path. These values show up in lots of faith traditions. Next is not putting all our eggs in one basket. In other words, don't look to the relationship to meet all our needs, especially our spiritual needs. Look for community like Sangha as your primary source of spiritual friends. Just because you can't have it in your primary relationship doesn't mean you can't have it elsewhere. And by getting the need for that community elsewhere, take some of the pressure off the partner who may not be on that path. So it's very important to have that community, have that Sangha. If you're doing it by yourself with your partner who's not doing it, it's going to get a lot more focus and attention within the relationship, and create more tension potentially, because you don't have a place to go and sort of pursue your own path. So let me just say in closing that, remember the Buddha likened life to a flowing river. Sometimes the rivers in our relationships run parallel, sometimes they diverge. But the key is to find ways to navigate those diverging currents together with respect, with understanding, and with the unwavering light of the Dharma that guides us, because that will surely reduce the tension in the relationship. And so we want our love and practice to continue to blossom and enrich both our lives and those with whom we share our lives, even if they are not in the path. So let me leave it there and get your thoughts. And just again, no quick fixes here, but some strategies for trying to lessen the potential divergence in our relationships.